This is Johnny with TigerBomb MMA, and tonight I'm going over UFC Atlantic City, Blanchfield versus Fiorot, giving you my thoughts and predictions on the whole card. It is a Atlantic City card in New Jersey, so already negative points for this card, but it's a necessary evil. Again, we are close to UFC 300, and the co-main event's going to be great. The main event's going to be great. There's a couple good fights on this card, 14 total bouts. I'll give you my quick assessment on these. Before I do that, I wanted to give you my thoughts and how I did on the Namajunas versus Ribas card. Not too bad. I did a total of like 5 units. I only lost one legitimate bet, and that one really stung, mainly because the guy sucked. And yeah, the first fight was McParkin versus Muhammad Usman. I actually took a shot on Parkin really late notice. Luckily, though, by that time the line had gotten to like minus 125, so I put a unit and a quarter on him to win a unit back. It was rough at first, but he ended up catching those 2 rounds easily. The second and the third were 100% McParkins. Mo Usman kind of being a bitch about him losing that fight like it was a robbery was pretty funny to me. Andre Lima gets a disqualification win over Igor Severino via cannibalism. That tattoo is nice, so I'll go with that. No bet with him. Daria Zelenikova defeats Montserrat Rendon. What a stupid fight. What a waste of everyone's time. Luckily, I was preoccupied doing better and more important things, but if you wanted my general assessment as to who won, I don't care. That's what I think. Jarno Aarons defeats Stephen Wynn. I picked Wynn. He was the one who broke my streak of, not losing a fight currently, prediction-wise. But yeah, Stephen Wynn, the reason I kind of felt he could win is that, like, he's got the good training, he's got the good striking, but what we don't know about him is, like, what's in between his ears. And I feel as if this is as a guy who's very analytical. Like, I joke around a lot, but when I look at certain guys, I kind of get that feeling of, like, you hit him once cleanly and you'll break his spirit to want to fight. Like, he'll still fight, but like his body will just not react. And that's kind of like the same assessment I had with Sean Strickland. Like, he wants to win. He tells himself he wants to win, but there's going to be a moment in the fight where he might just decide, my arms aren't working no more. Why is that? I'm like, because you're mentally blocking yourself. Regardless of that, Jarno Aarons did very well. He busted him up. Jarno's a good fighter. It's just that my honest assessment on it, like, plus 185 on him was great. I didn't take it. I thought about it. Like, it was a dog or pass, but Jarno, I feel like they don't want him in the UFC, and they try to give Stephen Wynn like an easy layup, not knowing how good Aarons is. But I do feel like they're going to give Aaron someone way better to get him out of the UFC. I'll just give you that assessment. Cody Gibson, I had a half unit on him at like plus 115, thinking, yo, Cody, you're going to be the bigger, stronger, better striker, better cardio. None of that was correct. He was, God, I don't want to get into what the issues are with Cody Gibson without it being a hate crime, but he did not perform well. Johns as well. He did what he needed to do. Was not impressed by him. Was what it was. Sucks for me. I would consider my entire night a loss just based off of me picking and betting Cody Gibson, opposed to not going at Jarno Aarons because I'm an idiot. But regardless of that, it was a good night. Still made a profit. Currently, I'm up half a unit. Julian Erosa defeats Ricardo Ramos. Not much to say there. Ramos he's kind of getting known now for pulling these stunts. Like, he hurt Erosa, and I kept thinking, like, yo, he better finish him or else, who female activist Erosa is going to come after him. And he did just that. Like, he caught him with that guillotine exactly like the last fight and I mean exactly like it. Of course, it's the same technique, but Ricardo Ramos was getting out of that Jourdain guillotine, and just the positioning and the repositioning of the guillotine and the grip from both Erosa and Jourdain were almost eerily similar. And it's almost like Ramos, another guy that you put him in a hard spot, he will tap out. Kurt Hullaba did piss all against Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden just took him down with ease. Not much to say there. Fernando Padilla. So Padilla, I specifically said, I can't trust this guy. Like, he should win this fight. But by the time I got to the casino, I had no one to bet. I had all this money. I have my niece's 15 is coming up, and I got to get some quick cash to pay for that shit. And I'm like, who am I going to bet on? And I'm like, am I going to bet on Fernando Padilla? So I took Fernando Padilla. I didn't put a ton on him. I put like 3 and some units to win back 2 units. So he was like plus or minus 160. So I'm like, you know what? At minus 160, I think he's going to run through this guy. But even if he doesn't, I think he'll win a clear decision. He beat his ass. Like, that's what I needed to see from Padilla. So I was like, oh, thank God. I was actually nervous before the fight started as they were calling them out. Like, Pajuelo looks all mean and shit. And Padilla's kind of like, you know, there's certain Mexicans that you can trust, but a Mexican that really likes anime, you can't really always trust at this time, especially if he watches One Piece. But he goes out there, he does eat a shot flush from Pajuelo, and then he retaliates like, oh, when he ate that shot and he didn't move, I was like, oh shit, he is fucked. Pajuelo's screwed. So he knocked him down, beat him up, got I believe it was a Darce choke standing, got him to tap. It was awesome. I was actually considering putting that money on Rose, and I was super glad I didn't. Yusuf Salal, my biggest regret of the night. I was talking all this shit about like Yusuf Salal, take him at plus 140. I didn't get to the casino in time to take that. Like I messed up bad, but he looked amazing. Like by the time I got to the casino, people had wised up on him, and he was like what minus 115, maybe minus 105. So I felt like, you know what, you missed on it. Let's see what happens. Beat his ass. Billy Q. I love Billy Q, but when a guy can match his cardio, like pace for pace, and he is the better striker, he looks just like that. It was unfortunate. Like he was getting taken down really easily. He got submitted. First guy to ever submit Billy Q. And I feel bad for the guy, really, because he was on Twitter saying, like, hey, I got to go back and reassess. That was not what I wanted to do. Clearly, obviously. So, Billy, he's up there in age. I still believe in him as like maybe not a higher level fighter, but he's going to be a fun fighter to watch continuing his, career in the UFC if you give him good opponents. Wouldn't mind seeing an Arosa versus Billy Q. That'd be awesome. Peyton Talbot utterly, lack of a better term, cucks Cameron Simon. Cameron had nothing for him, and I picked Simon, and I'm thinking, just match him strike for strike. But then in the back of my mind is he going to be able to actually hurt Peyton? No, he was not able to do anything to Peyton. Couldn't even do anything to him. He hit him a few times. Peyton didn't move, and anytime Peyton hit Cameron, he affected him tremendously. There was a moment there where obviously he was going for that. I don't even really know if Cameron was going for a takedown. He just happened to duck his head, and he got laser beamed with the knee. Peyton was just not. He was not missing on anything. He was picture perfect that night, so he looked impressive. I'm still not a fan of him. I'm not going to jump on his dick sucking train quite yet because I don't truly know his ceiling. I do think there's guys out there that can give him trouble. I thought Cameron was going to give him trouble, but he is better than what we assessed at. So he does have the good cardio, good chin, good striking. I mean, that striking last night was impressive. I was very impressed by it. But again, what's his ceiling? I'm not saying he can contend with Sean O'Malley already. Some people are. I'm not going to go ahead and say that. Next bout, Shabazian defeats AJ Dobson. Dobson was looking really good. I was surprised he actually started throwing punches. Edmond, it was kind of a win-win situation for both. Although AJ lost, that wasn't a great performance by Edmond. Like, I do think he got kind of lucky there because whatever he hit AJ with, what the hell was that? Like, he just kind of clipped him with the wrist, and AJ just went straight down. I don't know if AJ's chin is trash, but that was a weird finish there. Because other than that, AJ was looking amazing. He was like whipping his ass, doing it for Mark Coleman and Hammer, and Edmond just was getting wrecked until he got back up. He showed a bit of heart, so that's why I'm saying it's a good showing from both men. AJ's able to throw punches, and when he does, he looks good. Edmond is now somewhat capable of coming back from adversity. Carl Williams defeats Justin Tafa. Tafa wins the retard of the card. Retard of the card. That should be a thing I should do. But yeah, Justin Tafa, he was doing well until he decided to give Carl exactly what he wanted. I do think that Tafa would have been able to stuff some takedowns because Carl, he's a little weird sometimes. He doesn't set up his takedowns properly. But unfortunately for Williams, Tafa set up his takedowns for him by either throwing a knee that wasn't anywhere near landing, and throwing a head kick and then just allowing himself to get taken down. Justin, I thought, had good moments in there. He even did show the ability to, stuff a takedown from Carl Williams in the second round. But then again, he would just put himself in these situations where he's like, you know what? I'm gonna let the intrusive thoughts get the better of me. I'm going to throw a head kick that, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm like, don't do that. Third round comes out, he hurts Carl Williams. And right then and there, Carl was ducking his head, like trying to get into an entry. And I'm like, now you can throw the kick, Tafa. Now you can, nope, just let him fucking grab him. It was unfortunate. I do think that Tafa did show some more improvement, but Carl Williams did what Carl Williams does. So overall, with the main event and everything, I went what was my total? 9 out of 13. So it wasn't bad, like a 69%, 70% clip. Not too bad. Rose, she closed out my parlay, had a parlay with Padilla and her. Not much to note there. Amanda Hebas, her head and arm throw wasn't uber effective this time. Rose did show to me at least that she still has like high level skills. She's probably one of the more skilled ladies in this division. She just doesn't have, I hate to say it, the power at 125. I thought she was going to at least hurt Rebus, even though Rebus's chin is better at 125. She didn't really display the aggressiveness or the oomph that I wanted from Rose Namajunas. So I think she called out Macy Barber, and I think that Macy is not a good matchup for her. Although I think Macy is not as good as Rose skill for skill, I think Macy might be able to actually have that, power advantage, the aggressive advantage. So it was what it was. Good night. Some fights were interesting. Of course, we had a bite of the night. We had Shabazian actually showing some heart. So it was pretty interesting. But onto this card, the Blanchfield versus Fiorot. I have some opinions on here, but overall, if I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a tough card. Like starting off here, Angel Pacheco versus Colin Loughran. Loughran is minus 345. And there's a lot to like about Don or Colin the Don Loughran. I like his ability to talk shit. I like his demeanor. He's trying to follow in the footsteps of Conor McGregor, another Irishman, but he's a stout, very stuck in the mud kind of guy when it comes to his striking. He's not very fluid. He does hit hard. He does have good combinations, and his boxing isn't all that shit. He does like to get it to the ground. He has really good ground and pound, and he's a really strong, stocky dude. Realistically, he should be able to get Pacheco down. The only issue is that Pacheco's not going to be a guy that lays down. Like, again, with the psychology, when I look at this guy, he's not uber athletic, but the guy comes to fight. Like, if you look at his performances outside of the UFC, especially the one before the Contender Series, he gets dropped pretty bad, nearly finished, but then he comes back, he rallies, and he finishes the guy. I believe he is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I love the ability that he has to create just chaos in there, and not like dysfunctional chaos, but I mean like when he gets in close, he does use elbows, he does blast knees, he does throw a ton. He landed 200 plus significant strikes in his last fight against Danny Silva, who is officially a UFC caliber winner in the UFC. As for Loughran, he eats a lot of strikes. So I do think that the line is off. I do think that Pacheco is potentially live. Potentially. And that is if Loughran cannot physically manhandle him. If Loughran is able to just take him down at will, I do think he has good cardio. I think he does have that ridiculous power on the mat. He doesn't always go for submissions. He will go for the ground and pound, and he does have very heavy hips when he gets his guys to the ground. So I do think of this similar to like a C-Rod versus Dolgarian. But in this case, I do think that Loughran is actually better at striking. He's more comfortable, and he doesn't always go life and death for that takedown. But then again, why wouldn't you when you're undefeated and you're just able to smash these guys? So it's a tough one. Like, to me, I'm not touching Loughran. I don't feel confident in this. I do think that Loughran has the ability to, like, say if there's a striking differential between these two where Loughran is just eating a bunch of strikes, I do think that Pacheco's strikes aren't really going to affect Loughran as much as like a single strike from Loughran is going to affect Pacheco, where he might put him out or he might hurt him significantly to the point that he can get him down and just kind of erase all those significant strikes that he's landed. So it just it's an interesting bout. I'm really, really looking forward to this one to see if Pacheco can really get in there because, as I mentioned earlier, with like psychology, this guy really wants to be in the UFC. And with that, like, I do think he will fight for your money significantly. Like, you see that last fight, it was an absolute brutal war. He got hurt multiple times, but he didn't stop. Like, there was even an argument in certain cases that if Angel didn't get hurt in those later rounds, he could have actually stolen rounds number like two, shit, rounds number one, two, or three. He really was outlanding Silva at certain points, but Silva just hit him way fucking harder, which then caused the damage, which led him to win the fight. But Angel, again, he will fight for your money, and I do think he can actually fight for my money here. I am more than likely going to be placing a bet on him, maybe like a half unit on Pacheco, and very well knowing that he could instantly get put out, instantly not be able to get back up. But I believe in him enough to take a shot on him. But again, Loughran, it's more so the odds. Had he been like minus, let's just say minus 200, minus 150, I'd be like, yeah, he might be a good parlay piece because I think he is very relentless. He's very strong. But again, it should be a lot closer, I think. But I understand the odds 100%. But I'm going to go with Pacheco. I just got to believe in the raza here. So moving on, Petroski versus Malkoun at middleweight, plus 170 for Petroski, Malkoun minus 210. I don't understand. I understand the reason why the odds are the way they are, but I don't understand why they are the way they are. Petroski, he has a lot of physical advantages over Malkoun, except for one thing, which would be the cardio. And maybe Malkoun has better striking technique. We don't often see it, but I think, yeah, I'm going to give it to him. He does have, I believe, some boxing experience, like some amateur boxing. I don't trust Malkoun in this spot. Just because we haven't seen him get his lights put out in a while doesn't mean he's not capable of getting his lights put out. And he's an interesting cat. The reason I am leaning Petroski and why I'm going to take Petroski is because Malkoun, we haven't seen him truly go out there in a striking battle. Like, he always sets up his strikes and then he goes for a takedown. That's exactly what Petroski wants. He wants a grappling matchup. This is probably what it's going to be. Petroski is going to be the bigger guy, have the more power, I think more dangerous with the submissions. And I do think that even if Petroski gets tired, he will get tired based off of maybe striking, not necessarily grappling. Because even when he's tired, I've seen this guy get takedowns like relentlessly. So I do think that he can get top control. And I think his hips are going to be heavier if he gets on top. He's got, I think, the better wrestling and grappling pedigree, which just says that Malkoun, even though he's like not uber athletic or very physically imposing to look at, he just finds a way. The guy's a very, very good wrestler. And again, he's able to shoot so many damn takedowns that he can get guys out there exhausted, like what's his name? Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and et cetera, and et cetera. So, of course, if Andres gas tank fails him, it's still a very competitive matchup, I believe. I could be wrong, but I do think that Petroski, he doesn't have the threat of the striking here as much. And I think he's going to thrive in this situation where not only can I predict him to get a decision, I can see him getting a knockout. He does have the harder punches, even though they're not as clean. So I do think he can get a knockout in like the first or second round. That if he doesn't get that, if it becomes like a fully wrestling matchup, I think he's stronger to maybe even pick up Malkoun and just out muscle him. Opposed to, I think, Malkoun, not to say he has the better wrestling technique. I think Malkoun is all technique, whereas opposed to Petroski, he has the technique plus the power. So I'm going to go with Petroski. I'm just going to list it as first round knockout, but I think he's a solid guy, especially again when there's not a huge knockout threat. So I'll go with Petroski on this one. Next bout, we've got Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. I've not been impressed by Dudakova, and I think the odds also indicate that with a lot of the public. Plus 135 for her, 8-0, not looked uber impressive. And now she's fighting a girl that's going to really give her some issues if she gets a takedown. On the feet, she's serviceable, but I think Melissa Gatto, she's fought the better competition. Obviously, she's minus 160 here. She's 8-2-2. She's fought really good competition in and outside the UFC. And I just think that like she is able to not only create the scrambles off of her back, she's able to threaten submissions, she's able to like strike with her. And this might be a little too much for Dudakova, who in her last fight, she nearly she had some moments there where she could have lost to Jin Yu Fry, who I actually predicted would beat her, and it was close. And even with the Estela Nunes fight, like it's a win, but uh, gravity did all the work there. So I'm going to go with Melissa Gatto here. I think she can actually find that submission, whether off of her back or maybe taking her back, getting the body triangle and working for a rear naked choke. I just think that Victoria Dudakova, she's just a step behind currently. And from what I've seen and what I've gauged from her is that, she's a beautiful girl and I would want her to win. I would want her to be better. Like, but I just think Melissa Gatto's got her beaten on the skill gap. Next bout, we've got newcomer Ibo Aslan versus Anton Turkalj. Interesting. Last I checked it was a pick 'em, but we have Aslan here, minus 125. Come back on the pleasure man is plus 105. So they fought before. I can joke around and say, like, don't watch the fight because Anton just quickly submitted him. But the reason it was originally a pick 'em is because, you know, Anton was getting his ass beat. He did find the rear naked choke, but that was, after he took a ton of hard low kicks, after Aslan kind of rocked him a ton. And what I noticed in that matchup was, yeah, Anton back then, and even now you still see it, like he's not a great MMA fighter. He's not great anywhere, but he's kind of relentless with takedowns. But it isn't really that he has good looking takedowns, a lot of body lock stuff. His cardio is good. His ability to absorb damage and recover is pretty good. He's a solid fighter, and I think with those very limited skill sets, I mean, he can strike. He's fine. He's gotten spinning back fist knockouts. The thing is, he has that ability to take that ass whooping, and he has cardio, and that's kind of how he outlasted Aslan the last fight. But the issue with Aslan is that he did slow down, whether it be by a small iota, he did slow down. And because he slowed down, Anton was able to capitalize. And I mean, he took the back immediately and tapped him out. But in that first round where they originally fought, I did notice that, obviously Aslan was kicking his ass, but Anton, although he has that stupid gimmick of being the pleasure man, it's kind of funny and whatever, but he does kind of have a mean streak to him where after he took that ass whooping, like he came after him. He's like, motherfucker, I'm gonna come get you. Like, you think you can just hurt me and not not have me retaliate. So you kind of saw at the end of that round that Anton was like gonna start to take over because Aslan was kind of slowing down just a little bit. I do think that Aslan might be a bit of a, how did I put it in my notes here? I want to credit myself correctly. I think he has a fraud ass record. I think he's beaten dudes that aren't very good. His last fight before the Contender Series, where he fought a guy that it was pretty much a very simple matchup for him. And what was that dude's name? Yeah, Paulo Renato Jr. fought at heavyweight, then he fought at light heavyweight. He should be a middleweight, this kid, but he fought this Grigori, whatever, complete mismatch. Like it's like that one Chinese guy that we saw, the Mountain Tiger, recently that fought that Hibero dude, where you see him fighting these like really fat heavyweights, and you're like, he's a fraud, right? And that's kind of what I saw with Aslan. I'm like, he's fighting dudes that have no business being in the ring with him, and he takes care of business, and that's what he needs to do. But that's not really his fault. Like, you don't have to fault the guy because he has a shitty record. As long as he's beating the shit out of these guys, and as long as you notice what he's doing well, really hard low kicks, good takedown defense, mostly because he's so big. Good power in the punches, lots of hooks, kickboxing experience, but I do think he will slow down. I do think that if Anton weathers the storm, he's going to find that rear naked choke again. He's going to be able to find a way to finish him. So I'm going to take Anton in the second round. Again, weather that storm. What would be smart of Aslan would be to kind of mimic what he did in the Contender Series, where he wasn't as aggressive, where he kind of picked the shots, really hard low kicks. He was landing these low kicks on Turkalj at will in their first fight. So to me, I just feel as if he is very capable of beating the crap out of Anton again and winning, and maybe even getting a finish. But we're with Turkalj, like I've seen him kind of weather and come back and create those scrambles. And if he cannot get finished, I mean, if Aslan doesn't finish him, he's gonna put that body on him. He's gonna make him work. And do I trust him not to gas out? Like he tends to finish his opponents in the first round or two. He has gone to the third round and finished the guy, but he was tired then. And this guy he was fighting kind of just left his chin up with his hands down. It was just like, what the hell? So I'm not too sold on Aslan quite yet until I see him with that good cardio in the second round. Not to say you can't win this, but I will take Turkalj in the second. I think that he will take that ass whooping. He will push a pace on him and then eventually chip away at him, whether it be the second or third round where he does find that finish. And I'm going to go with the submission. Next bet, we've got Connor Matthews versus Denis Bazukja. It's kind of a mirror matchup here. I don't want to break this down. I'm gonna be honest, man. Like I thought about it. I'm like, should I make this into a joke? Then I'm like, no, it's already a joke of a fight. And I'm like, well, do I want to really give you my true assessments on these both? Then I realized I got to be nicer to these guys. Like Denis Bazukja, he is what 11-4, minus 125. Connor Matthews plus 105. Connor Matthews. Mm, Here's the thing why it's really hard for me to break it down. I don't think either of these two belong in the UFC, at least not yet. I think Bazukja, he made it on short notice and it showed that he wasn't ready originally. You know, we saw him fight in the contender series against Melsick, couldn't take him down, couldn't do anything. It just showed that he's not, he's a well rounded mixed martial artist in the fact that he can wrestle and he can strike, but he's not well rounded enough to be able to actually get just a pure striker to the ground. Connor Matthews, he's very much the same way. Like he has a good grappling, he has some decent striking, good power in his punches, but I just I don't see him being UFC caliber. Like they're feeding both these guys to each other to see like how do we weed these guys out. And I think this is a really good chance for Bazukja to really use his training, his UFC experience. He is the vet in this situation here. I think he comes from a better camp, obviously. He's fought the much better competition. He survived the much better competition, except in his last fight. Don't want to get into that, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you bring in Connor Matthews from the contender series just to give him the Denis Bazukja? Like, are you trying to get Denis Bazukja out of here? Do you think Connor Matthews has a higher ceiling? I truly don't think so. I'm going to go with Bazukja by a decision. I think they just match up very well. Very, very similar when it comes to like the striking, nothing too fancy with the wrestling. I think Bazukja might have a slight advantage there. So I've seen Connor Matthews get out grappled by a 20-some-year-old Francis Marshall and not be able to do anything. And I think Bazukja, although he's not the greatest wrestler, I think he threatens enough to be able to get a takedown eventually. So I'll go with Bazukja by decision. Next bout, dear Lord Jesus, no. Julio Arce versus Gilbert Burns. Gilbert de Blange Burns plus 350. I'm just going to say it. Taking a shot on Burns, probably going to do that. I'm going to take him inside the distance, see if that bumps up the line a bit. But it is truly Julio Arce's fight to lose. He's minus 455. I saw one book actually had him as high as like minus 770 or something. Mm, what a waste. What a waste of words here. Burns is a couple things. He's got nasty, ridiculously good jujitsu. He is a death gasser, and he is, I think, for the third year running, the champion at the Alistair Overeem lookalike contest. So he's got a couple things going for him, but one really bad thing going for him is that he gasses out. That is the worst thing you can do, and he is gassed out twice in such a manner that like you cannot trust him. So much so that I do think Herbert Burns, skill for skill, better fighter than Julio Arce, much higher upside with the finishing ability. And when was the last time that he fought? About 2 years ago, where Bill didn't do anything other than survive, and he gassed himself out trying to attack Bill Algeo. He had him in a triangle. Bill didn't like beat his ass. He just laid on him, maybe punched him a few times, but he just couldn't get back up. That is rough visually. and you can never escape that. But opposed to that, really good jujitsu. He can get that at any time he wants. If I think if he takes down Julio Arce, it's gonna be a scare. Where if Julio doesn't survive that initial barrage, he'll Burns and anyone with a Burns ticket's gonna look smart. But if he does survive, I do think Arce is gonna whip his ass. Where we might see another situation where Burns just can't get back up, or a flush head kick knockout. Who knows? But to me, it is a dogger pass. Like Julio Arce is not a parlay piece. There's too much danger here. But I got to go with Arce when it comes to this. I'm going to go TKO round number 2, but it is a dogger pass. I am going to actually bet Herbert Burns just for the shits and giggles of it. Plus 350 on a guy who can get a first round submission, maybe even a second round submission. Like he has knocked dudes out. Like he's a solid, he's a solid guy. Burns is, but again, that gas tank is so bad that he's plus 350 in this situation. Again, I think Burns is where your money should go, opposed to trying to like parlay peacefully Arce. So I'll go with Arce round number 2 knockout. But to me, it is a dogger pass and maybe an insta bet for Burns. Next bout, we've got Virna Jandiroba versus Lupita Godinez. This one is rough. At straw weight, 115 pounds. Jandiroba is very live. Not because I think she is the better fighter. It's because Lupita Godinez, and I hate to admit this because I've been on her train for a while. I've been giving her so many excuses like, yo, why is she losing to Angela Hill? Well, like maybe because Angela Hill, she's taller. She can't take her down because anytime she gets in close, she gets knee to the belly. So I made that excuse. Okay, she's a veteran, Lupita, you'll come back. And she does a lot of really dumb things as of late where fighters she should be dominating in every facet of the game, she lets them get too close. Emily Ducote should not be going to a close, decision with you. Cynthia Calvillo, you should not be going to a split decision with her. Tabitha Ricci looked good to me in that fight. And I've been saying for a while, like, I think Tabitha's overrated. I think she's good when it comes to grappling, getting takedowns, and I hate to say it, because I've been so critical, but she's very good at stifling her opponents by doing bare minimum shit. And occasionally she will get an armbar on you if your name is Jessica Penne. But yeah, against Godinez, I thought Godinez was going to have the power advantage, the boxing advantage, the wrestling advantage. And there were moments against Tabitha where Godinez got hurt. I'm like, why is she so afraid? Why does she do this to herself? Why does she look amazing in one fight and then like a shell of herself the next fight? And she's minus 200 here against Virna Jandiroba, who is plus 165. And you can say a lot about Jandiroba, right? Like when you look at her, you don't know where she's looking at. She looks like Raul Rosas Jr., but she's a solid girl. She will fight. She won't have second thoughts about stuff. She's not been knocked out, I don't believe. She's been decisioned by Dern and Hebas. And the thing is that I think Godinez has multiple paths to victory here, and I'm going to pick her to win, but she's not someone I want to bet in this spot. I think it is a dogger pass money-wise when it comes to Virna versus Godinez, where I don't think Virna's going to get her to the ground. We saw in her last fight, she was very high with the takedowns against Marina Rodriguez, where Marina Rodriguez, her takedown defense just significantly just diminished. Like she used to be able to step takedowns, and then maybe round number 3 she would start giving them up. But in this case, like it's like she forgot how. It's so crazy, and I'll give you this scenario. If Rodriguez were to fight Godinez, your thought would be Godinez, all she has to do, let's just give you this scenario. Godinez wins this fight impressively. She takes down Virna, tires her out, pounds her, maybe gets the very 30-26, 30-27, 30-27 decision where she looks amazing again. We get her against Rodriguez. Is that her name? Yeah, Marina Rodriguez. And you're like, yo, get her ass down. She can't stuff takedowns. Godinez minus 300 against Rodriguez. And then Godinez can't get a single fucking takedown. that's a possible scenario that could happen. A woman that is more than willing to give these takedowns up. Godinez isn't even actively going for them, and anytime that she does go for them, she kind of bails out on them. That's my thought on her currently. So she's always a case by case scenario, and this is a much higher opposition than her last fight in Tabitha Ricci, where Virna Jandiroba has fought, you know, women who have fought title contenders and title challengers. It's a rough one. It's a rough one to try to predict because it's Lupita Godinez with an asterisk because she's more than capable of pulling a stunt. But I will go with Godinez by a decision. Next bout, Nate Landwehr versus Jamal Emmers, featherweight bout. Minus 205 on Emmers, come back on Landwehr. You could say that Jamal Emmers is very much so like the Lupita Godinez and vice versa of his division because he's so talented. He can wrestle, he can strike, he can grapple, he can do all this shit. He's super long, he's tall, 4 inch or 3.5 inch reach advantage over Nate Landwehr. But Nate Landwehr's a dog. I don't think he's ever going to touch gold. I don't think either guy will. But if you were going to tell me who is more likely to actually maybe contend for a number one contender spot, I would say Jamal Emmers because he has that talent. But again, can you trust him? I will trust him this time. I will take him by a decision. I think that his last fight against Bazukja was a good indicator of where he's at, where he's like, I got to get more aggressive. I can't let these people take these wins from me like Jack Jenkins. He has to mix things up, get it to the ground. But I do think he's able to hurt Nate Landwehr. I think he can knock him out. The thing is, the reason I'm going decision is that Nate's a guy. He's not going to let himself get knocked out, even if he's out cold. The moment his head hits that canvas, wakes right back up, starts fighting again. He took some massive shots from Dan Ige, and he just kept coming at him. He got thoroughly whooped there, but he never gave up. He never stopped fighting, and that is always what's so dangerous about Nate Landwehr. The only issue is that he's fighting a very, very difficult matchup here. A guy who can match him in the wrestling, a guy who, he's only been submitted, I believe that one time recently. I don't know in the past if he's been submitted, but the Pat Sabatini heel hook, that haunts me to this day because I'm like, you know what, Jamal Emmers, just put hands on him, break him. You got this. You're bigger, you're stronger, you're better than him. Don't go for any stupid heel hooks. Ha 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 ha. Oh no, he went for the heel hook. But I think Emmers is just going to be too much for him. I think Emmers is going to be too quick, too long. It's just, will Emmers find a way to lose this fight? Because even if he doesn't find a way to lose this fight, Emmers, that is, Nate Landwehr is not going to make it easy on him. But I do think if a prime Emmers, he's 34 years old. I would say he's in his prime now. I think his body wise, like physicality and all that, fighting wise, maybe his prime would have been a few years ago. It's just that mental Emmers might be prime right now. I think mentally prepared Emmers with his natural athleticism and power, he's going to take care of Nate Landwehr pretty quickly. And I'm considering Emmers as a parlay piece, maybe with another person or two other people, but I think Emmers has him covered, except in the tenacity and the will to win. I think Emmers, with that Jack Jenkins loss, he didn't take it personally as much as I wanted him to. I think he showed it in his last fight, except like he was talking like, yeah, shit happens. It is what it is. I'm like, no, dude, like I thought you beat him. You should think you beat him. But maybe that's just his way of like psyching himself up, being super nice about it. So I'm going to go with Emmers by decision. Next bout, Chidi Njokuani versus Reese McKee at welterweight. Very simply put, it's minus 160 for Njokuani. Come back on McKee is plus 130. For the love of God, wait until the weigh-ins. Chidi, he used to fight at 170. I don't know if he can make 170 healthy. He can make 170, but healthy, I don't know. If he does make it healthy, this is his fight. I think he finishes Reese McKee pretty easily. But Reese McKee, the issue with me not taking him or putting a bet on him right away is that he is plus 130. Had he been plus 500, I'd be all over that. Like, yo, take the ass whooping up close and then, wait for Chidi to gas out. That would be my game plan. Oh, my God. I'll meet Chidi Njokuani at 170. You're like, yeah, bro, like meet me at 170. Don't not 171, not 171 and a half, 170. You and me, Chidi Njokuani, will fight. I'll let him whip my ass for 5 minutes, and then after he's exhausted, I'll just push him over and win the fight. So that's what I would do if I was Reese McKee. But again, Reese McKee's not plus 500. I do think that if Chidi makes the weight, no problem. He looks good. He looks healthy. He's cut the weight smart. He's going to run through Reese McKee. But again, he's 35. He's moving back down to 170. I can't trust that. But again, better fighter, Njokuani, I got to go with him. Next bout, we've got Bill Algeo versus Kyle Nelson. Yeah, this is the main card. All right. So Algeo minus 220 comeback on Kyle Nelson plus 180. The thing about Kyle Nelson is that you count him out and he tends to surprise you. Like he surprised me with Blake Builder, he surprised me with Padilla, but I felt as if in both of those occasions it was the perception of Kyle Nelson that was not met with what these opponents were thinking of. Like Blake Builder was thinking he's going to be aggressive, I'm going to shoot under, take him down. Nope, he's just super patient. And same thing with Padilla. Like, Padilla's like, oh, he's going to come at me aggressively and I'm going to like do this and that. He kind of weirdly enough lulled them into a false sense of security, especially Padilla, where Padilla is just kind of picking him apart from the outside, but then Kyle tends to mix things up. He's a better mixed martial artist, landing kicks, visually looking like he's doing more, and he ended up winning that decision there. And the thing is that he's known kind of as a guy that kind of goes balls to the walls trying to get a finish, and he hasn't really been doing that. I feel like he's matured as a fighter, and he kind of knows that his gas tank isn't the best. But in this fight, what is the way he can win this fight against Bill Algeo? Bill Algeo, guy, great cardio, pretty much great everywhere except power in the punches, perhaps. Like, I feel like he has developed a bit more power, a bit more confidence in his striking. Very awkward. I like watching Bill Algeo fight. He's a super fun guy to watch, and I feel like he can put up the numbers against Kyle Nelson if they are playing that game of, well, let's see who can throw the least strikes. And Bill Algeo breaks that promise and throws more strikes accidentally. And I think he can push the pace on Kyle Nelson. I think he can make him work, get him tired. Kyle, he does have, I believe, a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something at that high. I know he has jiu-jitsu abilities, but I think Bill Algeo is just better than him in every facet. I think he's going to be bigger than him as well and longer reach. I think that the only way Kyle Nelson wins this fight is if he does lull Bill Algeo into that kind of sleepy performance where it's like Kyle just kicks him from the outside. He lands the better shots, the better jabs, the harder shots, and Bill just kind of accepts it because he can't crash into him. But Bill is a guy that will just crash right into you, no problem. So because of that, I don't foresee Kyle really doing that to Bill. I don't see Bill falling for it. The only other issue is that if Kyle Nelson comes out super aggressive, Bill has a great chin, and I think he can still survive, but I think that would be even worse for Kyle. But that is probably the best option for Kyle Nelson, is to actually try to hurt Bill immediately, maybe like damage him in some way, like the legs, the body, maybe do some damage to the eye, maybe get a cut, like cause physical damage to Bill Algeo. So the rest of the fight is your fight. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Like, if he doesn't succeed at that point, I think it is going to be all downhill for Kyle Nelson. For that, I'm going to go with Bill Algeo by a decision. Next bout, we've got Nursultan Ruziboev versus Adikris Dumas. Initially, I'll tell you real quick. Initially, I thought easy win for Ruziboev. The reason for it, a couple things, right? Not his last performance, right? Like I am critical about this guy. I'm not sold on him, but it's both of their last performances were like signs of good and bad for both. So with Adikris Dumas, he's got some issues outside the cage, kind of an asshole. He's plus 220, but he is, I think, slowly developing into a proper UFC fighter. The thing is, his ceiling, I don't know what his ceiling is, because I've seen him get hurt. I've seen him get out wrestled. I've seen him just be a fish out of water, and he's definitely putting in his rounds with the grappling, so much so that he's able to get takedowns on Cody Brundage of all people, reverse him. But man, Cody just sucks so much. And Abu Azaitar, I don't know if that's a good look that you barely squeaked by Abu Azaitar and you have to kind of take him down. that last fight is like, damn, dude, I don't know how good you are. I think you are capable of main eventing, these game bred fights, which funny enough, I'm looking very Masvidalian at this very point with the hood, with the beanie and the beard. But mm, I feel as if he is impending a nasty knockout. I think it's coming his way. And there's going to be a specific level of fighter that's going to grant him that knockout. He's going to put his ass out. He's already been submitted before by Josh Frem, who, like, to me, Josh Frem, he's another guy that could potentially be highlighting and being main event or co-main event of a game bred event or possibly an LFA event. And for Ruziboev, when I did my tape on this guy and he was fighting Ferreira, I'm like, dude, Ferreira, just don't do anything fucking stupid and just take him down, beat his ass. This guy loves to give up takedowns, but he's super experienced. He's super tall. And what Ferreira did was throw a kick and then he caught it. He fell backwards, knocked himself out as he fell backwards. So gravity did all the work there. And Ruziboev hit him with a punch as he was already knocked out. So it should be I guess, co TKO for Ruziboev, like punch slash gravity. But I watch his tape and he's beating bums, and I think he has skills for sure. I think he can strike. I think he has power in the punches. For sure he has power. I think he has the power to hurt Dumas. I think he has the power to beat Dumas, but if Dumas, with his like new love for wrestling, decides I'm just going to take him down, I think he can hold him down there. I think he has a chance to do so at plus 220. It's definitely worth it. But again, you're putting it on a guy who I don't know if he's UFC caliber. I don't think both these guys are, but I do think that Ruziboev, he has the experience so much so he's 33, 8 and 2. I don't like the lines. I think it should be a 2-1 favorite instead of nearly 3-1. I'm going to pick him to win. I think he actually knocks out Sidikris or possibly even submits him because Ruziboev, he has some decent stuff off of his back, but he's on his back a lot. I think if you're Dumas, you strike with him a bit, maybe throw your kicks. Don't engage in the striking with him because that's what he wants. And he is going to more than likely, I think he has a longer reach. He's a taller guy. So, like the head kicks from Dumas, I don't know if they're going to be effective, but clinch him up, take him down because he will give up takedowns easily, at least from like previous tape. That's, I also bring up something like he's in the UFC now. And I don't know, did he get a bonus for his last knockout? Let me check. If he got a bonus, that might change stuff. He did not get a bonus. I don't show. No, he did get a bonus. That's even scarier. He got $50,000. Here's another thing, like the psychological breakdown of these fights. You are a dude from Uzbekistan, where you kind of suck. You kind of suck, but you have some skills, and you really don't have the training partners to teach you how to properly stuff a takedown. You go into the UFC on short notice, and you knock out this literal Hulk. They give you $50,000. You take that, you go to the US, and you're like, teach me how to stuff a takedown. I will give you $25,000. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of people willing to take that. So I think that money like that, being in the UFC, can help a guy that, like, he might be okay. But then you see, oh, this guy sucks at wrestling and whatnot. Then you see him, get a little bit better. And I feel like that could happen here. So maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. If he gives up an easy takedown, I'd be like, well, fuck. But I was considering putting him on a parlay, but I do see the danger in him just getting out grappled by Dumas here. But I do think he will knock out Sidikris Dumas. And I am hoping that I'm right about this whole thing where he got that bonus and he, went to someone and be like, yo, teach me how to fucking stuff a takedown. And be like, yeah, sure. Because that does help. I've seen it happen in the past where like these guys who they get lucky in a way and they get a bonus. They're in the UFC, they get a good paycheck, and they significantly improve on a specific aspect after their last fight. So I'm hoping that's the case here. Next bout, ooh, this is rough. We've got Bruno Silva versus a retiring Chris Weidman. I don't know if he's retiring, but he's retiring. Plus 225 for Weidman. Come back on Silva. Can't trust either guy. To break it down simply, again, I look at this in the sense of who wants to win more? Chris Weidman wants to win this so bad. I feel as if Chris Weidman, as long as his body, as long as his legs and his head don't fall off for whatever reason, he's gonna do whatever he has to do to win this fight. He might bite a guy, but shit, that'd be really funny. Like he's beating Silva up and against the cage trying to get a takedown. And he just like bite me. But Silva, I don't know what his ambition is. It's a very easy matchup for him. He's minus 280, but he sucks at wrestling. It's happened many a times where like the dude got out wrestled by Andrew Dirty Sanchez, and then he did find the knockout. But it's so simple, bro. Just kick his legs, kick him in the head, knock him out. You got more power. All you have to do is stuff takedowns. And I do predict that's what's going to happen here. I don't trust Silva. He hasn't been the same since Poatan ruined his life. He didn't knock him out, but like, dude, when you're getting dropped by Mearshart, you're damaged goods. And Weidman, he's 100% damaged goods. Like he's never going to be the same again. He isn't the same again body wise. But props to the man against Tavares. Busted legs, got kicked ridiculously amounts of times, and he kept moving forward, trying. There was a moment there where I had all this money on Tavares. I'm like, Tavares, stuff the takedown, Tavares, which he of course did. But the fact that Chris was not giving up, I'm like, oh my God, like that scares me. That scares me. A man that can take that kind of punishment after what he's been through and not stop. I feel as if there's a chance there where Silva can maybe unload on him, not get him out of there, and then Weidman just with his eye hanging out, his leg dragging, he gets him down. For whatever is wrong with Chris Weidman and his body, he's never gonna not know how to wrestle. And even then, I still think he can get a takedown on Bruno Silva. It's just up to Silva to see, is he able to do the damage early so that doesn't happen, or is he able to actually stuff the takedowns, break away, and start unloading on him? But it is for me Bruno Silva knockout. I'm going to say round number 2. I do think Chris Weidman. I respect Chris Weidman's ability to get takedowns and to move forward. And former fucking champ, really, you got to give him that. Like I am hoping that he wins. That's why I'm not touching this fight money wise. I'm a little tempted. I am definitely a little tempted by knockout for Silva or just finish, but still, like I do want Chris Weidman to win this fight. Lay down your gloves, but this is not that kind of a sport. It's not the happy, not everyone is going to be Robbie Lawler. As much as Chris deserves it for real, he's fighting near his hometown, like subway away, or home state. That is, it's not a fairy tale sport here. But I'm going to go with Bruno Silva by knockout. But again, damaged goods. I would not trust him to do what you really truly expect him to do. Like so much so that like if I were to have a crystal ball right here and it shows me the future of Chris Weidman getting knocked out viciously, I'd be like, I'm still a little suspicious about it. Maybe it's like giving me false info. All right, next bout, co-main event. We've got Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley. We've got here Luque minus 115, come back on Buckley minus 105. Really tough matchup. Clearly, the odds indicate that. I've already seen people pretty high on Buckley to win this fight, and I get it. I understand why. But me, as a member of the Luque lovers Anaconda Club, I cannot accept the fact that Luque is done. I know he's 32 years old. He's suffered with the brain bleed. But when I look at the matchup, there's a lot that I think he's better at. I think he's the better fighter, the more complete fighter. It's just that he is going to be the slower guy. And Buckley he's super motivated. And when I look at videos of Buckley on his Instagram, the dude is doing a lot of hard work. We saw he has great cardio in his last fight at 170. Even at 185, like there was moments there where he would just not stop going after Imavov. The issue with Buckley that I always have is that he kind of has a weak little chin. I feel as if a guy like Luque, who is a much better striker, can pinpoint him and counter him effectively to knock his ass out. We saw it against Chris Curtis, where Buckley was like, I took Buckley in that spot. I took him because I'm like, yo, I think he's going to be too fast for him. And Curtis is essentially a blown up welterweight as it is. They both were. And all Curtis did was just eat the strikes. Just kind of ate him on the shoulders and on the forearms. And he found that counter shot and he put Buckley down and he finished him pretty easily. And that's the issue, is that a guy like Luque, he just needs that one. I don't know how many Buckley's going to need against Luque because he got knocked out against Jeff Neal, but Jeff Neal, although both southpaws, him and Buckley, I think Jeff Neal's just a much better, quicker striker. He's much more effective, much more clean with the 1-2. He's when he throws that left hand down the middle, it is uber accurate. As for Buckley, he throws a lot of loop and shit, throws a lot of volume, but it's all looping and lots of hooks like what. And I think that's perfect for Luque for him to cover up and then effectively counter. So that's why I'm leaning Luque. But again, like, what's his chin like? He took a ton of punishment against Jeff Neal, but even then, like, he needed all that punishment to put him out. But then the brain bleed happened. My thought is, as long as Luque is cleared by the commission, we should be okay. It's just in his last fight, he didn't look, uber interested in wrestling, or not wrestling, but striking against a guy that I thought he could have knocked out. I did take him to win. He made me the money, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that like I felt as if it was like a hard earned, like, oh yeah, like it was easy money. It wasn't easy money. Like, Luque looked a little behind, so I am worried. I am worried that he's looking a little past his prime, even though he should be in his prime right now. The issue is that obviously the damage he's taken. He went to life and death with Brian Barberena. We saw him go life and death kind of with he died in that one against Jeff Neal. But Jeff Neal's a tough bastard. We can't count out Jeff. The thing about Luque is he has the ability to wrestle. He has the grappling advantage, black belt in jiu-jitsu, nasty anaconda chokes, nasty darces. He can hurt anybody in this division, specifically Buckley. Buckley likes to dip and dodge and duck his head. Luque has the better kicks. I think, again, Luque is just a better fighter. He has him covered everywhere except the speed and maybe the determination, right? I do think Luque is a guy that can come from behind. As for Buckley, I don't think he'll ever stop fighting. It's just that the only way you for sure make sure he doesn't fight is that you knock him out, which I think might be pretty easy for Luque to do. Um, I'm curious here. Has Buckley ever knocked out a guy with just straight punches? I do believe he can do it. He has power. He's a big buff boy. But has he ever done it just punches? Because like all of the knockouts that you kind of see from him are by like spectacular kick, like the kick against Fialo and the kick against Impa, the millionaire Kasanganai. So let me see. Yeah, you know what? Well, I guess Jordan Wright, but come on now, Jordan Wright. I'm I'm leaning Luque on this one because I really don't know if Buckley has that kind of power with the punches, mostly because he generates a lot of power. Visually, it looks like a ton of swinging and with the hooks, but I don't think he has that proper boxing. And I do think that Luque might be able to like see everything accordingly. So I'm going to go with Luque by knockout. I think he can actually knock out Buckley by countering him. I think the first round it's going to be Luque kind of gauging him, feeling the power, and then at a certain point he will effectively counter Buckley and hurt him, whether it's with a kick as he's dipping and dodging like Mike Tyson style, or if it is based off of like a lead left hook that Buckley tries to throw and then Luque just pops him. So I think I'll wait because I know there's money coming in on Buckley, but I'm a Luque lover boy. So I'm gonna take Luque by second round knockout. If he does become plus money, which I think the trend is a lot of people are betting Buckley, I might take that shot on Luque at that point. All right, main event, flyweight, number one contender. They're both number one contenders. I really thought had that draw not happened, Manat and Fiorot would have had the title shot. But now we've got these two facing off for the next guaranteed title shot. And what in the world happened to these odds? Minus 200 for Blanchfield and plus 165 for Fiorot. And I'm trying really hard not to let the odds dictate where I go here because truly I think that Blanchfield has a lot of upside, but not at minus 200. And I'm going to be a bit of a fence sitter here because I do think either woman can win this fight. I think if we're looking at it in a gambling perspective, strictly, It is Fiorot or pass. I think Fiorot can definitely win 3 rounds if this goes into a 5 round fight, obviously. So I think she can win three, bare minimum of the five. She gets the decision, plus 170, plus 165 ticket. You got it. Because she is so solid, good kicks, beautiful kick to the body, the side kick, good footwork. She can grapple. She is the bigger girl. I think she's just a more experienced kickboxer fighter itself. The fact that she does have, I believe, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. We've seen her grapple. We've seen her get back up from bottom. We've seen her dig up underhooks. Blanchfield, what makes her so incredibly dangerous, obviously, is her jiu-jitsu. She's a black belt. She is very good at creating opportunities for herself to snatch up submissions. We saw it against JJ Aldrich, which when I'm looking at that matchup, I'm thinking, yo, Fiorot is a much better kickboxer than JJ Aldrich, and JJ was able to stuff takedowns. And if it wasn't for her getting caught, we could have seen the first UFC loss for Blanchfield against someone who kind of sucks. But for Fiorot, what are the possibilities that she gets her back taken? I think they can be pretty high, but not early. And I do think that if you've got a ticket on Fiorot, especially like online, and you can cash out, she will be like minus 250 coming to the third round if she doesn't finish Aaron Blanchfield by some sort of crazy. I don't know. I don't think Fiorot has massive power. I don't think Fiorot is truly a finisher. She has gotten a finish before against Tabitha Ricci on short notice, but I don't think she has that kind of nasty power. Barring some sort of freak accident where she kicks Blanchfield in the kneecap and her knee explodes, I don't think there's going to be a finish. I think it's going to go to a decision. The higher finishing ability is going to go on the path of Blanchfield, where she can get a submission, but it's going to take Fiorot making a huge mistake for that to happen. The issue again is, if you do feel as if Blanchfield has the upside to win, I do think at minus 200, it's not playable for sure. She will drop in price 100% because Fiorot is going to sneak away at least around number one. Blanchfield is kind of known to drop the first round, and not necessarily like a habitual first round dropper, but she adjusts better than she fights immediately. And that's what I've noticed the most about her. She's very good at adjusting mid-fight. JJ Aldrich can't really take her down, creates an opportunity for her to go for that submission, and it worked out for her. Against Talia Santos, she couldn't get her down the first round, said, well, what do I have success with here? Pretty good at clinching her. I feel like I'm stronger than her. Push her up against the cage. I won at 29-28. She did that. She finds a way to win. She's a younger girl by 10 years, but she's going to be the smaller girl allegedly. Even though she has the reach advantage by 2 inches, she is at a 3-inch height disadvantage. This one's so damn tough. I know there are certain people who are already on Fiorot, and I understand it, but gambling wise, I'm going to pay close attention because I do think that come say round number maybe 2 or 3, we're going to see some adjustments from Blanchfield that might cause some issues for Fiorot. So I do think, damn, like I don't want to be dishonest here. I do think that Aaron Blanchfield has a very good chance to win this fight. I really think that she could be losing up until the 5th round, and she has the cardio to create some sort of scramble, some sort of like she goes for a takedown and she goes for a last ditch effort and she maybe drops for a heel hook where Manon Fiorot spins out of it. At that point, maybe Blanchfield jumps on her back and finishes the fight, that kind of stuff. So I do think she's capable of that just based off of like how I perceive her fight IQ to be. But when it comes to like just straight fighting, straight decision fighting, straight point fighting, I think Fiorot is clearly going to be up in the scorecards a little bit more than Blanchfield. Her striking is not all that great. This is going to be the highest level striker she's fought. She's had struggles taking down opponents in the past. I think Fiorot, because she has that ability to point fight, so much so that she won't get tired. This is going to be the most important fight of her life. And for that reason, I'm going to take Fiorot by decision officially, because I've been going back and forth with this one so much so. That's why I'm like, I don't know who to choose. I do think that Fiorot can win this fight, but she is a bit older, and I do worry that if, say, Blanchfield decides to just go all out with the grappling, maybe she does, you know, break her a little bit with the gas tank. Where round number 4 or 5, the takedown does happen, and there's a big possibility of a choke getting in there. But again, Fiorot, brown belt in jiu-jitsu, I think even then she can get Blanchfield down, get some control time. I really do feel that Fiorot, the only way that she loses is by making a pretty big mistake that Blanchfield can capitalize on. And if anyone can do it, it will be Aaron Blanchfield. So I'm going to go with Fiorot, but I'm really split by this one. This is, to me, although we bitch and complain about the cards, for this being the main event in a live crowd in New Jersey, granted, they deserve this card because it is a female MMA main event. I do think this main event is very, very good. I don't think this is going to be like last week with Hebas and Namajunas. I think these two girls really want it, and they're going to show it here. So props to both these ladies. Whoever wins this one, better woman gets a title shot, of course, but I have to go with Manon Fiorot, the beast, to get the unanimous decision win. So again, it's going to be a great card for at least the last two fights, but I'd like to know what you think in the comments. Let me know. What are you thinking? Are you thinking that what's his name, Angel Pacheco, might be a good dog? I want to know that for sure because I feel the odds indicate that I'm the only one thinking that Pacheco's going to win this fight. But shit, I don't even believe that Pacheco's going to win this fight. That's why I'm only putting half a unit on the guy. I do think that he has the ability to scramble and just create chaos in there, and then outpoint and out volume colon cancer over here. But yeah, let me know what your favorite dog is and who would have put my money on, because this one is kind of rough. But yeah, Johnny TigerBomb, catch you next week.